Well, finally going home. Still feel a little weak, but yeah, I think I'm ready. Jesus. That's what made it possible. Yep.
Let me tell you what I wish I'd known when I was young and dreamed of glory. You have no control. Who lives, who dies, who tells your story.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Brain of Thought podcast, season finale. This is your host, they call me MJ. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat. As you all know, this is the season finale of season 1. As you can tell by the title and the music, it's a little different. So this episode is going to be a little different. I'm speaking from the heart, so I really didn't rehearse any of this. I mean, I gave it some thought, but I never really wrote down what I'm going to say. So this is all basically from the heart. So I might get emotional in the middle of it. I don't know. We'll just see what happens. So let me just start off by how I came up with the name of this episode. Who lives, who dies, who tells your story? I came up with this from watching Hamilton, the play. And I was, guess, one of the late bloomers that didn't know that this play actually happened in 2015. I never heard of it. But I have Disney Plus, so everybody was rating and raving how great it was. And it was great. But the one thing that stuck out to me was who lives, who dies, who tells your story. That phrase kept sticking out to me for whatever reason. 4th of July weekend. Actually, on the 4th of July, before we went and set off fireworks, we actually watched this. And it's very ironic, which I'll get into why it is in a second. But that stuck out to me, and I thought to myself, I'm going to do something with that. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do something with that phrase because I like it. Who lives, who dies, who tells your story? It's very interesting to me. So I get through the weekend for the rest of it. Rest of the weekend I get through it. So it was on Tuesday of that next week, which I'm going to talk about now. This is basically my perspective for the next week after what happened to me. So I was going from one job to the other job, and somehow I passed out. Now, honestly, I don't remember how I passed out or when it happened. All I know is I woke up. There were 3 EMTs around me asking me what my name was, where I'm from, where's my address, where do I live. I guess they were asking that question to see if I was coherent. So I was answering the question, and the first thing I opened my eyes to is my mask being not covered in, but a little bit of blood on my mask. So I'm thinking, did I get attacked or something? What happened? And so I'm feeling all over my body to see if someone stabbed me or something, because I don't really know what's going on yet. And so I didn't find any stab wounds, but the second I opened my mouth to talk, my tongue was hurting really bad. And so the EMT said, you must have bit your tongue from a seizure. And I'm thinking to myself, seizure? I've never had a seizure in my life. So he gets me on the stretcher. He was like, we're going to count to 3. I'm going to put you on the stretcher. We're going to take you to the nearest hospital. I'm thinking to myself, hospital? Can I just get up and go to work? This is my mindset. I'm still thinking I got to go to work. I'm not thinking this is anything serious. So we get to the hospital, and I'm still why am I here? And so the guy goes, we think you had a seizure. We're trying to find the cause of the seizure. Tell me who to contact. And so I tell him who to contact. and they call me back. They ask me if I'm okay, what's going on. I'm basically telling them I'm honestly don't know what's going on. They said I had a seizure. I don't really know. I'm basically trying to they're trying to figure it out as it develops, I guess. So they say the word admit. They say the word admit to me, and I immediately I am not staying the night in this hospital. Whatever's wrong with me, I'm pretty sure you can just figure it out and I can go home and come back. Little did I know I would spend the next whole week in that hospital. But I'm thinking they'll probably stay one night, probably nothing wrong with me, just probably look at me. But I didn't want to stay that night. That night was really surreal to me, and I'm just I'm in ICU. I'm like, dang, this must be really serious. ICU? Why am I in ICU? So they're trying to find the cause of the seizure, and they, I guess they try to find any medical history they can on me. And I tell them I never had a seizure before, ever. This is the first time. And so the next day, the neurosurgeon says, all right, I'm only speculating at this point, but I believe I've seen this before. It's probably caused by a mass in your frontal lobe. Like a mass. I said mask. A mass in your frontal lobe. And so I'm like, mass in my frontal lobe? It's almost like he didn't want to say the word tumor, but I know what a mass is. So I'm like, okay, you trying to tell me I have a tumor? He goes, it's a mass in your frontal lobe. But I kind of figured that's what it was. He goes, we're going to have an MRI to confirm that it is. And then we'll take it from there. So I go and get the MRI later that day. And so I think I don't remember if he came back the next day or hours later. But all I know was he was like, okay, well, we confirmed the MRI and it is a tumor. This is when he said tumor. He's like, okay, and it is a tumor in your frontal lobe. We think it's benign. We're going to look over it one more time, but I believe it's benign. 98% chance that it's benign, so you're probably going to be okay. But there's two options. You can either have surgery or we can do radiation and see what happens there. And so I didn't even think about the second option. He said surgery. I immediately said, yeah, let's do that, before he could even give me the second option. And that was very weird to why I jumped to surgery so quick, because I've never had surgery before up until this point. So why did I say that so quick? Maybe because I was just trying to all right, let's just get this done so I can go home. Maybe that's what my mindset was. So basically, he says, okay, you got to sign these papers, you got to give somebody power of attorney, all this medical stuff that I didn't know about, that I had to sign waivers and whatever. So I signed it because I'm thinking the quicker we do this, the quicker I can go home. So I'm thinking that we're going to just have surgery right now the next day. He goes, no, we have to prep for it. So it's probably going to be, it's going to be Friday. And I was like, okay, I guess I got to stay in the hospital a few more days. So Thursday, I think, was the longest day ever in my life. Ever. I think that was the longest day I ever had, because I'm thinking about a whole bunch of stuff, but the last thing I'm thinking about is dying on the table. You know what I'm saying? Now, I didn't check Facebook at all since then, not on purpose. I'm still thinking about other stuff, so I'm not thinking about social media at this point. Okay, so I think it was Thursday that I finally looked at my phone and opened up social media. I think I said one thing about social media, that, all right, guys, I'm in the hospital. Don't worry about me. I'll be okay. They're taking care of me. I know God is able. He'll bring me through this. So I'm basically being very vague about what's really happening. So I checked Facebook for the first time in 2 days. And there's just a whole bunch of likes and hearts and comments that they were like, we're pulling for you, MJ. You're going to be okay. Basically, it was kind of overwhelming in a good way, because honestly, mentally, sometimes I think that nobody actually cares about me. I don't want to say that, because that just says leads me to my mind plays tricks on me a lot, mentally, as far as people actually caring about me and stuff. I battle that all the time. And so to see it and to get all these text messages from these people that I always thought they only cared about me because we work together, or they only care about me because we're family or whatever. But my mind plays tricks on me. But in that moment when I saw that, I saw all the love and support that I actually have in life. So it kind of gave me a reason to live. Not that I didn't have a reason to live before that, but it gave me that push to go through the surgery. And at that moment, I knew I had no fear about doing it. I had some concerns about post-surgery, about what might happen to my brain, or if I'm gonna be able to do things on my own, or am I ever gonna go back to work. Those like minor things that I probably have to adjust to. But the last thing I thought of, like the last thing that was on my mind, was dying on the operating table. I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna die on the operating table, because now I got a reason to live. Now I know people care about me and everybody's praying for me, so there's no way, like, and I'm thinking like, okay, there's so many things that I know God got planned for me, so there's no way He gonna take me from this yet. There's no way I'm gonna die on the operating table, because He's not through with me yet. I know that for a fact. So He's gonna use whatever this is and have me share my testimony or whatever. So I'm thinking to myself, I just gotta get through this. Let's just get this done. And the sooner we get this done, the sooner I can just recover and be enough to go home, at least to my family, so I can just get out of this hospital. So that's what I'm thinking too. But to see that social media and all these text messages I haven't checked in a couple of days, it was very overwhelming, like in a great way. That like, these people actually care, It was almost like I got choked up the night before. I did. And I kind of shared this room with this other guy, this old guy next to me. Now, we didn't speak, but we knew that we were both in there with each other. Like, we both acknowledged each other's presence, but we never said a word to each other. So I silently hear him praying. Now, I don't know what he was praying for. Maybe for me, I don't know. But I had heard him praying. So it kind of had me feel at ease, like, this guy knows God. So that makes me feel better that I'm in the same room with a believer. Now, it may not make a difference to most people, but it made a huge difference to me. So let's just leave it at that. And he got phone calls too from friends saying, "What you do in the hospital?" I think he fell down and like kind of fractured his hip or something. He was trying to recover, and he was like, he had a really good spirit about it. So for him to have like a really good, like, he was older, so for him to have a good spirit, be positive about what happened to him, that helped me more than he would ever know, that getting through this. So of course, the Wednesday before the surgery, I had to do the COVID test. Now, let me tell y'all, I'm gonna tell y'all, for those of you who have not had the COVID test and never had to get tested, you do not want to. You don't. You really don't. That was the most uncomfortable 10 seconds of my life. Okay, second most. There was one time in middle school I tried to audition for. Never mind. That's neither here nor there. Let's not get off topic. But it was very uncomfortable 10 seconds. Like, oh my God. I'm going to explain to you what they had to do. They had to take this Q-tip, stick it up your nose, and leave it in there, kind of twist it around for about 10 or 11 seconds. And you kind of had to hold your nose like this, or cover your mouth as they did it, because it'll make you cough. And I'm like, God, dude, please don't make me do this again. And so I had to do that 2 days before the surgery. The morning of the surgery, I had this peace and calming about what was going to happen to me. Actually, you know what? Let me talk about the night before. The night before, I had friends text me, and I had family have a Zoom and, pray for me, as, bless this situation, have Michael come out stronger in the situation, praying for me and laughing and joking. It didn't last long, but to be honest, it didn't have to. So, once again, this is the whole love and support I didn't think I had, because my mind's always playing tricks on me. And so the night before, when I got off the phone with everybody I had to talk to the night before, I just broke. Like, I was holding it in for the longest time. Now, much as positive as I was the night before the surgery, I broke because of everything that happened to me. I was like, why is this happening to me? Why do I have to have a tumor in my brain? Why do I have to go through this? And I thought about everything that happened to me up until that point and what was going to happen after I get out of this. And I was like, what if I never recover fully? And what if I have to do something that I don't want to do, that I physically can't do for the rest of my life? And so all of that running through my mind. And one of the biggest things that kind of broke me was because I was here and my family was there. So like, we couldn't have visitors in the hospital because of the pandemic. So the night before the surgery, I gotta be honest with you, it would have been nice to have someone in person, kind of like, I'm so happy to see you, it's gonna be okay. Now, they did see me, but we can all admit that Zoom is not the same as in person. So I'm thinking about all these things, and I'm like, I'm not there to protect my family. Like, who's gonna watch my family while I go through this? I'm not there to protect them. I can't have anything happen to them because I can't do it. Like, I physically can't be there for my family. And it broke me. Like, all that played into everything else I was thinking about. It broke me. And all the while all this is going on, the same phrase that I learned the week before while watching the play kept coming back in random moments. Who lives, who dies, who tells your story? I don't know why it kept coming up. I can't explain it. It just kept coming up with every piece of new information and every event that happened from the moment I was in the hospital to the moment I left. It just kept coming up. Who lives, who dies, who tells your story? And it stuck with me. So the morning of the surgery, I had complete peace, like inner peace. I was not worried about anything. It almost scared the guy that was taking me downstairs, because normally when people go through surgery, especially brain surgery, they're a little nervous. But he seen the look on my face and he kind of got freaked out. He was like, "Are you all right?" I said, "Yeah, I'm good." He knew that I wasn't faking that, because in that moment I was good. Like, for real, I was good. And so I guess he got kind of freaked out because he never seen anybody go to brain surgery with a peace about it. Like, even if someone explained to them that it's low risk, which he did explain to me, it's low risk, you'll probably be fine. Still, they're opening up my head to take a tumor out of my brain. That was the size of a golf ball, by the way, for those of you who are curious. And I guess it kind of freaked him out. But I cried last night, and I prayed and I cried the night before. So I'm basically exhausted, and I'm just like, let's get this over with. But at the same time, I still had an inner peace about it. I was not scared at all. Not even a little bit. And I had to lay there for about 45 minutes before they took me in for the surgery, because they still got to prep everything together still. They asking me, am I okay? Do you need a blanket? Is it cold in here? A couple doctors came to me and go, kind of joke with me and saying, your real name is Michael Jackson. I'm like, yes, that's really my name. And then the guy's like, do you have a middle name? I'm like, no. Everybody else has a middle name in my family but me. I don't know how that happened. And of course, they asked the age-old question, was your family a big fan of Michael Jackson? And I'm like, no, it's just complete coincidence. But that's neither here nor there. So I laid there for about 45 minutes before they finally took me in. And so they put the anesthesia, or they tried, well, I guess it was anesthesia, that they tell me to count back from 100. I don't even think I got to 98 when I passed out, when I fell asleep, because I don't even remember counting. So I'm assuming I only got to like 97 before I was out. The surgery, he told me before the surgery, it should only take 4 to 5 hours. It ended up taking 9 hours. And he was like, okay, 9 hours. You were on the table for 9 hours, but we got the tumor out. It wasn't until a couple of days later that he told me something else, but I'll get into that in a second. So post-surgery, I'm still in good spirits. So I know the surgery was successful. They were like, good job, we got it, we're good, you're okay. So they asked me where I am, my name, squeeze my hand, just to make sure I'm coherent and understanding what people are saying. They didn't like mess anything up. So they were like, what is your name? And I was like, Michael Jackson. And then they were like, that's still your name? I'm like, last I was told, unless you guys changed my name in my sleep. And you know, once again, I'm still in good spirits about it. So although my head was killing me, I ain't gonna lie to you, it was painful. But once again, I still had that peace about it. But despite how painful it was in my head, yeah, don't get brain surgery, kids, unless you really have to. No. But anyway, so they sent me down to this room, in the ICU room. I guess it was like in the basement somewhere, like ground level or something. So I was isolated there by myself, and the nurse was watching over me. And my head was really hurting. I was just like, oh my God, somebody just make this stop right away. Someone please make this stop. Now, it's tolerable pain. Now, it's tolerable if I really didn't had to go through it. But I'd rather not, after being on the table for 9 hours, having brain surgery. I'd rather not deal with that on top of it. So the guy goes, hey, you want some fentanyl? Now, mind you, I don't know what fentanyl is. Never heard of it. Maybe I was living under a rock. But at that moment, I didn't know what fentanyl meant. So I was like, yeah, what is it? He was like, it's a really strong drug. Trust me, you'll be fine in a few seconds. Now I'm like, okay, well, you're the nurse, and I don't know anything about this, so I trust you. I don't think you would try to kill me because you don't know me. So, so he's like, okay, I'll give it to you. And he gave it to me, and in seconds, like faster than a Thanos finger snap, I was out. I felt good too. And I was like, what I said to him, I remember this before I passed out again. I was like, do you think I could fly with this? Right? He said, you can try, but first you got to get out the bed. And that's the last thing I remember before I fell asleep. I was only asleep for like maybe 3 hours. So I woke up. And I'm looking at the TV that's on, and SmackDown's on TV. I'm like, I haven't watched wrestling in years, you know, but I didn't feel like changing the channel because I didn't feel like it. I was like, whatever, I'll watch this. Just try to keep my mind off of what just happened to me. So yeah, the next 3 days, I was just kind of recovering in the hospital, but I had to go get another MRI just to make sure, double check that everything kind of, you know, went well and there's nothing else there. So I go get the MRI. The first time I got the MRI, I was fine. This time, I was so uncomfortable in there. I was like, get me out of here. They had to stop in the middle of it. I was like, I'm squeezing the thing because you got to squeeze it. I think the ball they give you to see if you want to stop it, you're getting uncomfortable. So I squeezed it so hard. I did not get comfortable mainly because there was this thing in my head that had to catch the little extra spinal fluid that's left in my brain or whatever kind of leaked. So I'm just like, I was afraid to move so much because this thing is stuck in my head, and I felt like if I moved, I'm gonna break something loose and we're gonna have to go back on the table again. I mean, although I wasn't scared, I'd rather not do that twice if I don't have to. All right, so I'm kind of scared that I might shake something loose, which is why in the MRI the second time, this thing's still in my head, mind you. I'm like, I want to move, but I'm so uncomfortable. And so they had to stop. They're like, you okay? You getting claustrophobic? I'm like, no, I just don't want this thing to move too much because I don't want anything to happen. So I was kind of extra paranoid, like, no, you're fine. And so I got through it. I think the MRI the second time was worse than anything else. And I had to get constant shots in my stomach. It was anti-seizure medicine just to make sure I didn't have another seizure. Actually, since then, I haven't had any other seizures, thank God. But so the neurosurgeon comes in and goes, okay, well, the surgery went well. We just checked the MRI, and it seems as though you have a tiny unusual mass in your head. It's not as big as the first one, but it's still noticeable. Which brings me to the news I have to share. Okay, before I share this news, don't panic. I don't have cancer, okay? Let's not just jump immediately to that. I don't have cancer. But because of this small mass, it's so small. Actually, I don't even know. They're saying they don't know if it's malignant or benign, but it's probably benign. And so they told me that I have grade 2. It's grade 1 and grade 2. I have grade 2, which means that if I have any like tumors, they grow faster than grade 1. So mine's more aggressive. It grows, but that has nothing to do with it being benign or malignant. But the tumors grow at a faster rate. So now I have to go through a certain type of now I have to go through what they call radiation therapy. I have to do this over the course of several sessions. By the time I'm done, the mass should be gone. It's kind of tiny, about, they say it's like 4 millimeters, but it's there. So, but the radiation should take care of it. So I think I should be good by the time that's over. But let's get back to the time I was in the hospital post-surgery. So when I came to off of fentanyl, the first night of post-surgery, I could not sleep. My mind was just wandering, and I'm like, my legs don't work as much as they used to. Am I going to be able to walk, let alone work again? And I'm thinking to myself, I'll be fine in 2 weeks. I think I'll be fine in 2 weeks. And the neurosurgeon's like, that's out of the question. You will be at least 6 to 8 weeks at the minimum. And I'm like, that no. Like, all I gotta do is get my legs from underneath me and just get this lightheadedness off my head, and I'll be fine. But basically every day I was trying to like will myself off the bed and kind of walk around the room, but it was not going as planned at first. And so the one guy volunteered to kind of shave the rest of my head off, because one part of my head was kind of, shaved for to get inside the spot that I was in, that a tumor was in. So he got up and he kind of walked me around the unit area, had my mask on and everything. And so a couple days after that, I was finally checking out of the hospital that next Monday. And once I got out, they wheeled me in a wheelchair. And once I got in the car, there was just this wave of peace. I just felt at peace. I look over at Bernice and I'm just like, I made it. I mean, I felt like I made it after the surgery, even though I was in the hospital, but I'm not used to being in the hospital that long. But once I got in the car, I looked over at her and I'm like, going home. And so my recovery has its ups and downs. But all the while, this entire time, earlier when I said who lives, who dies, who tells your story, I just kept thinking about that. And I think I figured it out, at least for me. Who lives is me. Who dies is the old me. Who tells your story? The new me. I think that's the order it's supposed to be. So, obviously, I lived through my ordeal. The old me died. Now, the new me gets to tell my story. And I think that's what this podcast is all about. Brain of thought. The irony's not lost on me. Now that I've had brain surgery. And I gotta be honest with you, like, every day wasn't a good day for me. I mean, it still isn't. I mean, I'm going through therapy and all sorts, actually. But every day's not a good day for me. But the difference is now I catch myself. I may not initially, but I can reflect in the things I've done wrong and the mistakes I've done. The mistakes now I make don't keep me down as much as it used to. And I realize I take accountability for my mistakes and I try to correct them and move on. So it's a different approach on life, at least for me. But I want to leave you guys with this thought. It's a little morbid. So if you don't want to hear it, I'd rather you just turn the podcast off now. But I feel like everybody has that notion, who lives, who dies, who tells your story. And I leave you with this question and have me thinking. If you knew you were going to die, let's just say someone says you have about 24 hours to live, or 6 hours, or 8 hours, or 2 days, whatever. You know the exact day you're going to die, or the exact moment. If you could pick someone before you died to tell your story, who would you want that to be? And how would you want them to tell your story? Would you want them to leave nothing out of it? Like leave no stone left unturned? Or would you want them to leave some parts out because some of the secrets you have you chose to take to your grave? I mean, when you put that in perspective, who lives, who dies, who tells your story? Who lives? Most of us leave a legacy behind. It doesn't have to be a big legacy, but there's some sort of memory or legacy you leave behind. Whether it's people who have certain memories of you or moments of you they shared, or you have like left a real mark on the world. Because I can use this example. I said this in my last episode, but I feel like it's a perfect example to use now. Chadwick Boseman. His memory lives on through his work. And while he was battling cancer, he still worked on his projects, and even seeing kids in the hospital with fighting the same battle he is. So he was the one that died, but his legacy lives, and we all get to tell our version of his story. Some of us know more about his story than others. Obviously, his family knows more about his story than we do. But that's the order. Who lives? His memory. Who dies? Him. Who tells a story? All of us. All of us have different versions of what that story is. So I apply that to me because I'm still living at the moment. So who lives? Me. Who dies? The old me. Who tells your story? The new me. So I'll offer you this question. If you were to die, how would you want to be remembered? That would be the living part. Dying would obviously be you. But who would you want to tell your story? Now see, we don't really have choices in that, because the story is going to be told from different perspectives, whether you like it or not. That's how people grieve. They tell you, people grieve through the stories they tell. I've lost some people close to me along the way, so I can attest to this. It's like you always want to think of one of your best memories of that person, and it kind of help you with the grieving process. I think that's exactly why that phrase kept coming back, because for some reason, whether it was divine intervention or God himself, he knew that I would be in this moment to tell this story. I feel like that's how it played out. Maybe that's the reason why this was on my mind so much, because he kind of knew this moment would come and I would tell my story, since I've lived to tell it. And this is what you're seeing or listening to or whatever. But if you were to die, who would you want to tell your story, and how would you want them to tell it? Just kind of think about that. Now, if it's too morbid for you, I don't want you to think about that. I don't want you to think about, death, because some people don't want to think about that, and that's totally fine. I just figured I'd pose the question for those who kind of want to do some critical thinking. So I gave you guys some homework to end the season. All right, I think that's gonna do it. So now you guys know what's going on with me. And before I go, I'm gonna take my hat off, because I've always had my hat in every episode. I'm not embarrassed because of radiation I can't get my hair cut, but I'll show you guys kind of the scar that's left with me. I'm not ashamed of it at all, but I purposely left my hat on for this moment. I don't think you guys can see it right there. It's right here. This right here. This is probably going to be permanent. But for me, it's a symbol, from what I went through. So at the end of the season, you guys get to see my scar. All right. So I'm probably going to be wearing hats for a while because the spot that they're doing radiation on, the hair is going to fall out. So, yeah. And I also can't get my hair cut until it's over. So, all right. That about does it for this episode of Brain of Thought Podcast. Thank you for tuning in on all 7 episodes of the season. Thank you guys. I appreciate the support. And even if you're like, it doesn't matter whether you support it or not, but thank you for listening to my story. Because the Brain of Thought, as well as my story, as well as you guys' story, it's always under construction. It's not finished yet. If you're breathing, the story's not finished. It's always under construction. There's a reason why that hashtag exists, at least in my world. Because this is not the end of the story. It's not. I have so much more to offer and so much more I want to do. And I'm pretty sure you guys feel the same way in certain aspects of your life. So, there you have it. Thank you for tuning in for the whole season, or at least for this episode of Brain of Thought. Follow me on Twitter, Snapchat, Facebook, and YouTube. All the same handle. They call me MJ. This is They Call Me MJ for the final time this season. Reminding you that who lives, who dies, who tells your story is always under construction. Thank you guys. I appreciate you. God bless.